Supraja is a very well-known architectural designer. She runs her own art gallery. She has her own design house. She's a woman of immense talent.
Thank you so much for having me, Naya.
We are seated at your gallery, and it has a fascinating name called Kadari. Could you tell us, how you hit upon this name?
So Kadari is my maiden family name.
Right.
It was named Rajeshwara Art Gallery on my late father's name.
Right.
And when I restarted it in 2016 in a small way, it was still called Rajeshwar Rao. I'm very proud that I'm able to pay tribute to my parents.
Decided to start your own ventures, which is your design firm, which is called Design House, and then it moved to an art gallery.
Do tie and dye, make buttons. My mom's very talented and creative, and thanks to that, I learned stitching and sewing, and my love was there. But I didn't want to do fashion. I wanted to weave textiles. And then I took up a part-time program to study interior design, which was 6 hours a week. So I would study and work. I did that about 4.5 months precisely.
So tell me, did your parents give up because you're very feisty and you end up doing things your way? Or maybe they perhaps believed that, you did have the talent as well.
Much later said, maybe I was a smart kid. I just knew what works, I was young. Later, I think oh my God, I must have caused my mom pain, which I think
now she's so proud of you.
Yeah. I got my first project. July, I got married. November, I started the gallery.
Hi, Supraja. Welcome to BCD. Thank you so much for taking the time out to chat with us. Supraja is a very well-known architectural designer. She runs her own art gallery. She has her own design house. She's a woman of immense talent. And we have the pleasure of interviewing her at her beautiful art gallery in Hyderabad. And this is our first interview in Hyderabad for BCD. So once again, welcome to BCD, Supraja.
Thank you so much for having me, Naya.
No, it's a pleasure, is all ours. And obviously, since we are seated at your gallery, and it has a fascinating name called Kadari, could you tell us, how you hit upon this name?
So Kadari is my maiden family name.
Right.
I originally started this gallery in the early 90s. And then it was named Rajeshwara Art Gallery on my late father's name.
Right.
And when I restarted it in 2016 in a small way, it was still called Rajeshwar Rao. And 2020, post a show we did for pandemic, we realized there is potential for us to grow online and a bigger gallery. And that's when we changed the name instead of just me paying. And I think I give a lot of credit to my daughter for this. And she said that you'd be happy later that you have it on your maiden family name and not just your father. And looking at the situation now, so I'm glad I played.
It's like an extension of your identity.
And I'm paying tribute to the family I'm born in. And especially my name, I do not write Kadari, I write which is also starts with K, my married family name. But I'm very proud that I'm able to pay tribute to my parents.
Going back, you were a young woman fresh out of college when you decided to start your own ventures, which is your design firm, which is called Design House, and then it moved to an art gallery. I think it takes immense courage and, bravado to do that, especially back then in the 90s when it was unheard of. The way to go forward was to, once you graduated, you worked for a couple of years and then you started something. So where did that sense of confidence come from?
So straight out of college, when I did my BSc Home Science, and I always thought I will weave textiles.
Yes.
I had named the business in my head also when I was in college, and I had a baby loom at home, and I used to stitch all my clothes, do tie and dye, make buttons. My mom's very talented and creative, and thanks to that, I learned stitching and sewing, and my love was there. But I didn't want to do fashion. I wanted to weave textiles. And I finished my bachelor's and I was going to write my master's in textile. And I was going to college one day, a week after college. And I gave a ride to one of my neighbor's friends who was working as an interior designer in a furniture company.
Oh, wow.
And we had this conversation on the ride. And she asked me, what are you doing? I said, I'm going to write this entrance for textiles. And she said, what about interiors? I said, I don't know. So I used to make furniture during my college days. I've actually got carpenters to make piece of furniture and sold to my college lecturers.
Oh, that's interesting.
I have polished it myself. I've understood about sandpaper, I've varnish and, done those kind of things. And so people in my neighborhood knew I was very creative. made cards and sold this in my summer holidays in 10th standard. There's quite an entrepreneur.
Yeah, where does this come from?
You know, I
Wasn't self-driven or
it is. I am very driven and very hungry. I'm very curious to learn. And I'm also very fearless. Like, you know, just this weekend, our daughter was there and we talk about stories of my childhood, which some I remember, some are told memories. And the stuff I've done in 3rd standard, 4th standard, like you'd wonder what courage I had to kind of take on people or, you know, just.
I think it's also maybe the background you come from. You had supportive parents,
Yes.
you know, who helped you evolve and gave you wings to fly. Because, you know, if you didn't have that support from the family at that age, it is very difficult to achieve all that you have done. But I'm also curious. I think, you know, where did you get the funding from?
So my neighbor's friend was working in a furniture company and she said there was an opening and why don't you try that? And when I said I don't know anything, she said, you're capable. I think I must have said it the second time, but I don't know anything. She said, but you're capable. I'm like, okay, if you think I'm capable, I'll go give an interview. What's there to lose?
Yeah.
Nobody's going to hang me for coming to an interview. At post, he'll say, hey, look, no, I don't think it this well. I went and he said 1 month probation. I said, great, it's summer holidays. So I went and told my mum. Mum wasn't keen because it was very far. And, you know, back in this is 1990, 19 June. And I convinced her that, Mum, if I'm home, I'm just going to chew your brains. Why don't you just let me out? She said, all right. I worked I always forget whether it was a week or a month. And I said, this is what I want to do in my life. I will not write my master's exam for textile.
My God, that must have created a hero at home.
So obviously now when I look at it, if your 18-year-old, 18, 21, 20-year-old says that she doesn't want to, you think this is very impulsive. You know, you're absolutely. And interior design really didn't exist much as a profession. And add to my luck, my brother was that time in IIM Calcutta. He was already finished IIT.
And he had already
Chennai. So he'd set very high benchmarks.
Yes, absolutely.
And so yeah, hell broke at home, but I convinced my mum this is what I will do. And then I took up a part-time program to study interior design, which was 6 hours a week. So I would study and work. I did that about 4.5 months precisely. And
so tell me, did your parents give up because you're very feisty and you end up doing things your way? Or maybe they perhaps believe that, you know, you did have the talent as well.
You know, I lost my father young in a road accident in Delhi.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And till he was there, he never said anything to what I did. My mom tried to, and he didn't let her.
So you held on to that memory.
So, so I think when I wanted to do things that my mom would not want me to, or I would probably just drop a line that if Daddy was there, he'd let me do. And I much later said, maybe I was a smart kid. I just knew what works, you know. I was young. Later, I think oh my God, I must have caused my mom pain, which I think
now she's so proud of you.
Yeah. But I look at that also. I was a smart cookie then also.
Yeah,
I knew what works.
So you knew what buttons to push, and that is remarkable for at that age and in those times.
Yeah.
So okay, So we were getting back to the funding question.
So the good thing about consulting is when I started interior design, I started work from home.
Yeah.
And my first project
your costs low there, yeah.
So don't really have. And then I got married within the same year. And my husband was also setting up a new business. We had space. So I set up the office from there. We shared the space. And for a while, he had extra space. And that's how I started the gallery the same year. So March, I got my first project. July, I got married. November, I started the gallery. All in 1990.
But tell me, was this an arranged marriage?
So the first job I did, that's the only job I did, he met me on the first day. So he reminds me the date every year.
Oh, wow, how cute.
So yeah, he says he saw me the first day and he decided.
Was he a client?
No, he was working. He and his brother-in-law had a partnership firm which was trading some stuff.
Okay.
And he had met me. Apparently, my current boss told me to call him and ask him something. And he always remembers that I asked him a question. Before he could answer, I'd ask another question and asked him 3, 4. And he was like, who is this girl? And he came and met me with some samples. And he always says he decided he'd marry me that day.
I love it.
When people ask me, is your name? I said, no, he loved me. He married me.
So sweet. But I'm really pleasantly surprised given how feisty and independent you were that you were ready to get married. So obviously you must have also really liked him a lot.
No. my mom was always very strict.
Oh.
And my mom just had lots of rules. And she would always say that this won't work in my house. You can do
Well, yeah, I know. I use those lines those days. Yeah.
I heard it and I'm like, it looks like marriage is a ticket to freedom.
Right.
Let me just get married and move on with my life. Also, back then, your career had depended a lot on whom you would marry, where you would live, all those.
Absolutely.
So, like, let me get done with this. So, 21, I got married. And I'm so grateful, but because now I still have the energy, we have
One year of very supportive partners.
Yeah,
That also makes a lot of difference. Yeah.
and I still have the energy to do more.
So you began the art gallery first, or your design?
Design is March, July, marriage, November art gallery, all the same year.
So what made you want to start both in the same year? Was it just impulsive again, or was it it's obviously an extension? One is an extension of the other, but was it a thought process?
No, I don't think too much. If I want to do something, I go ahead and do it.
Okay,
I commit and then I figure out how to do it. And I still did. I have to tell myself to think a little, but I'm not too cautious. My risk appetite is very high. I throw in the ring and then think how to make it.
So what about the art gallery? How did that come about? Design, I understand you've always had an affinity and a passion for it. Art, how did you discover your love for art?
So like I mentioned, my mom's very creative and artistic, and mom's family is in the academic side. So two of my mom's brothers went to the Fine Arts College here.
Okay.
And one of them, I remember as a child taking me to college. I was very, what I call kids like me, a very kidnapping material, very talkative. You tell them, I would just go anywhere. So I guess that's how I went to his college also And I also have a photographic memory, like my mom's family, my brother, all of us have. And something about it just stayed with me. And that uncle of mine, Mamu, stayed close to our house after we moved back to Hyderabad after that. So he had his friends coming over, and a lot of time they came to our house. So I heard this chatter in art. I got exposed to art at a very young age. Hyderabad didn't have any private art galleries.
Yeah.
So, Alliance Francaise, Max Muller Bhavan, CCMB would have shows. And I would go see.
So yours was the first, one of the first?
It was the first private art gallery. Yeah. So because I heard all that chatter, people would say there's no private art gallery. And, Delhi had galleries I had seen. So the first opportunity I got.
Yeah, but I'm amazed because those days, again, people who ran art galleries were a lot older.
Yeah.
And you were this young thing who had entered this space. So what was it? You meet with...
I now also say, what was I thinking? Like, I'm at 21. I started there at a gallery and things just fell into place because, I got support. Like I have, in fact, the other day I found some book which is signed by Lakshma Gaud and dated 1972. So I'm thinking he gave it to me. I remember, and my husband reminds us that we went to his house and he offered us dinner in, early 90s. So everybody was very nice to me because nobody had taken that courage.
I think it was the right moment.
Yes.
So how did you go about, what was the process? What were you showcasing at that point of time? How did you go about, selecting the artists?
I think I just went with my gut.
Okay.
We did a few shows. So I ran the gallery for just about a couple of years, 2-3 years.
Okay.
And then the choice was like I couldn't handle design and art.
It's a lot, yeah.
So when I had to drop one, the easiest was art gallery because art gallery sales were relatively limited.
Yeah.
And, but I remember one thing, whatever price was quoted, we sold at that price.
You were firm about it?
Yes. I don't know whether I or the market, but I don't ever remembering giving a rupee discount because I felt it was about the respect to an artist. You said this was 30,000, you sold it 30,000.
So how can you trace the journey of art in Hyderabad, how it's evolved from a time when you said that, yours was the first private art gallery to now where there are so many galleries mushrooming and, artists are in demand. There are art fairs all over the world. You have seen those changes.
I have. So after my gallery, till the next gallery which came and really sustained, there was a 10-year gap.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you had that 10-year window.
There was another gallery, this famous artist Surya Prakash. He started a gallery, Surya Gallery, which also lasted for a few years. Then there was a long gap. There was no gallery at all.
People were not buying art or they were just approaching the artists directly? What do you think was happening?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
And the third thing of buying it, the people who really were exposed to art bought it in Delhi. I think Delhi was really the art market back in the 90s. So people who knew and wanted to put in money would buy from Delhi.
So
there
how
was-
passionate are Hyderabadis when it comes to art now? Do you see a lot more interest, or you think it's the same?
Um, so there's a small segment of people, I would say,
Okay.
who are really interested in art and can afford it.
Okay.
There could be people who are interested and have
But
the knowledge,
Not,
but
yeah.
maybe not like
Yeah.
not the big names, but
Yeah.
and there's a lot of new money which is there all over India.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's just not a city; it is everywhere.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
the first thing you want to buy is not art. You know, you've done your car, you've done your house, you've done your deco, you've done your big shadi, you've done multiple. After that, then you kind of evolve. In the next generation, then you come.
Yeah, I think also,
You know?
for those kind of people, or for a lot of people who are doing up homes, it's also about matching your art, to the interiors, which is okay if it works for you. But do you see a lot of that in your area?
Oh yes, of course. Because when you're doing up a house and you're buying art for a space, then you think about it that way. Whereas if you're a collector and you already had art, then you would figure out where to place it. It's exactly like how the new brides are probably looking at saying, okay, I'm going to buy a Sabyasachi lehenga and hence I will wear this jewelry and buy it. Whereas somebody else saying, oh, I have my nani's jewelry, I'm going to wear this, and because of this, I will buy a sari to go with that.
Yeah, it's a matter of
It's just a matter of perspective. But I personally don't have a problem that people buy an art to match the sofa. What my the way I look at it is, you bought a good art. Doesn't matter if you bought it because it matches your sofa, because your neighbor has, or you heard the name, whatever. You bought good art. You will look at it. By the next generation, the shift will happen where you appreciate quality.
so you
Whatever your reason,
yeah,
whatever the reason you bought an art, I'm happy you bought real art.
yeah, the kids grow up with exposure.
Yes.
Yeah.
You see how people move from a Maruti to a luxury car,
Yeah.
then from a HMT watch to a Rolex, you understand this quality.
Yeah.
And if you buy a good art, and art does something to it, moves you from inside,
Yes.
and which you may not even realize what's done to
You're
you.
internalizing the emotions and the colors, like this beautiful Sachin Jaltare painting. I mean, I am so mesmerized by it, I just can't.
And it does something. They tell people, buy good art. I try and understand their likes and dislikes and give them accordingly, And also, just talking a little bit of art, what I say about art is, while you're appreciating it, it appreciates itself.
Yeah.
It's one of those investments also because, and I'm a big one that you give children inheritance. It's not just land and wealth. It's these things,
Yeah.
Some nice art, some nice chandeliers, some
And
nice
it's
carpets, some nice silverware,
things in life.
some nice watches. You give children a mix of everything.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's a nice
so
model.
when I do a home for clients, I kind of put it together. And I always say, for your milestone birthday of your children, you shouldn't give them a brand new expensive gift. You should take out something from the house and give it.
So it's like a mood board that you create.
Yeah, and which is also a nice transition that you're slowly giving things from your house to them.
Yeah.
And not inherit one fine day and saying, oh, what do I don't have place for all this.
Yeah.
But isn't it lovely that, you get something.
So speaking about clients, so when you were this young 21-year-old girl, how did you get your first client? Obviously, it was word of mouth.
Yeah.
But more importantly, did they take you seriously?
So when I started so young, obviously my clients were much older.
Absolutely.
Married, children. You look at them, they have traveled the world more, or they have just seen life a little more than you. So it's harder to be very sure. Also, you don't have experience to be so sure of a design, right?
Yeah.
So I remember doing far more site visits back then. Sorry, to answer your question, yes, it was. I wasn't very sure all the time. But one of the things I would do is do a lot more site visits than even the clients asked, because I wanted to make sure it's coming out right. But now, even when clients ask me site visit,
I don't need to do
I
it
don't need to do it so
because
much.
it's all there in my head.
Yes, by the time you're finished telling me what the problem is, I'd probably have a solution for it. But I still hear them out. So yes, it is. It's a learning curve, and I think I've been
So how
really
do you
blessed with the
navigate,
opportunity.
challenging clients, people, okay, you're having a conversation with them and they come up with suggestions which are not just practical, but not even maybe aesthetically appealing, so how do you, handle those kind of tricky areas?
all that comes with experience. But yes, there are times we've had difficult clients. There are times you want to give up on a project. But the one thing I don't is just as my personality, I don't give up.
Okay.
I just don't give up on people. I don't give up. That's why I have very long lasting relationships. I do not give up on people near me. I always give them the benefit of doubt, and I kind of um, try and see another perspective. So yeah, in some projects we have to do a lot more alternatives. But I always say it's a difficult clients who made me become
Trial by
tougher.
fire.
I've toughened up because of them. It's my easy clients who said yes to things and I moved on.
Then
right?
you get
So,
complacent.
yeah,
Yeah.
with these, they made me do more alternatives, or when we were right and we were with a good design and they didn't accept, then I learned how to be more convincing on my point of view, right?
Have you
It
ever
teaches you a
faced a
lot.
moment, Supraja, when a design that you work passionately, a home, has kind of disappointed a client? Has it ever happened? Any project? Or not met with the kind of expectations?
Not in design,
Okay.
but sometimes one odd time it happened that the project costed more. It is a commercial project.
Okay.
And the client was upset that the cost went up. But we don't do contracting to have full control, and they are very much aware.
Yeah.
And I think one time I think there was a PMC who wasn't good, and the client was not happy about that. So things like these do happen, and all interior designers know you get blamed for anything.
You're the fall guy.
Yeah, but it's okay. They understand with time.
I
They may do it at the moment, but they will realize that.
Did you find it overwhelming? You got married, you started two different, projects, so to speak. And then how did you manage your time? I'm sure you're really good at time management. And then you had a kid, and then you still continued with your career, and you've traveled all over. And that famous quote of yours where you landed in one city and then you went to another city and then you went to another country.
Yeah.
So just take us through this, process.
So I hope I'm not the same, but till about a couple of years ago, I called myself a woman in a hurry. I'm a woman, yeah. So I would always be.
I find you very calm now.
No, yeah, but I'm always next. What next? I'm always like that. I multitask a lot. So I think very fast. I act very fast. I take very quick decisions. My risk appetite is higher. I'm willing to take decisions and be responsible. Maybe 3 out of 10 will not work out, but I'll at least get 7 or 8 right. So, and fortunately, my experiences have also been that most of them turn out right. So then, when you do things, life encourages you, you go in a way because of how life. So I think those are all reasons that I can move and I move very fast. I take decisions.
You have to when you have multiple projects that you're dealing with.
No, I think it's also a personality trait, right? Some people want to ponder over things. Now I'm training myself that no, I should not take away quick
back and
pause, think. So even if someone asks me a question on the phone and I want to think, I may have an answer, but I want to think over it. I'll get back to you.
Okay.
But usually there's no.
How did life change after your daughter was born? Did you kind of slow down a little, or did you work around it? How was
I worked around it.
Okay.
But the life was a slightly slower pace back in the 90s. Our daughter is 5 born. And she just completed 30 last Sunday.
Wow, that's amazing.
My milestone birthday. So
you're saying your daughter's 30 and 95 born.
So in the 90s, I think the pace of life was slower compared to.
Yes. So and even Hyderabad, even in early 2000 was very slow.
Correct.
Yeah.
So there was no social media, there was less traffic, right? So it makes a difference.
Yeah.
And I tell people that I was blessed. Traffic was very less. So you could go from point A to B and go to point C very quickly. You can't. City was not so big. Expectations were lower. So I think it was probably, I don't think in 2025, if I had to do this all over again with social media and the traffic and so many options and everything, I would have had to do some trade-off. So I didn't have to slow down. I was doing projects in Chennai back in the early 90s. And I remember traveling to Chennai a month after I delivered her for a day trip.
So what do you enjoy more, designing homes or commercial spaces?
Homes.
Yeah.
And I feel I was born for that, and I feel that's my purpose of life. So all our presentations end with and they lived happily ever after.
No.
I believe in the power of word. I believe in the power of intent. So for every project we do, we are saying that in every single presentation, and they lived happily, right? You put that intent out. When I finish a project and I pray in a client's puja room and pray to God that in this house, they must all flourish, they must be healthy, they must be happy. A lot of good memories must happen from this house. And I wish well for my clients, and I'm a big one for saying positive.
So when you
things
look
and-
back, or I want you to tell me which are your most favorite projects in terms of, very iconic and that have taken your career to the next level, whether it's a home or it's a commercial space. Yeah.
So I can name some projects in 90s which may not even be valid today. But, there was this club we did. It is the old Pega Palace. Half of it was bought by someone.
Okay.
It's not that popular now. It's called Chiran Palace.
Yes, I've
Chiran
heard of it.
Palace. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So when we went there, the property had bats in it.
Oh my.
And I remember the older women in the family. They were very surprised. There was a lot of men. I was the only woman. And she was very surprised to see a woman working. And she asked me a lot of questions. I don't remember exactly, but that stayed with me because Hyderabad's changed so much, from then. And that project did give me visibility for being a commercial project. But that some of the homes we did in early 2000s, I think really set me really going, and I was flooded with work in the 2000s.
So have you consciously slowed down now?
Yes. And I think pandemic really helped me to that because it was the first time I turned 50 in 2020,
Okay.
March 8th, and my desire was to take 5 days off and be home.
Okay.
I didn't want a party. I said, I want to be home and for 5 days and do nothing. And it so happened that I was home for more than 5 months after that, thanks to pandemic. And I'm like, oh, it's lovely to be home, and that's when I started.
So what happens to this legacy that you have built? Who is taking it forward? Is your daughter involved?
No, she's a data scientist. As of now, no real plans.
You're just
But
going
yeah,
to
I'd be happy if I could pass on the passion because more than anything else, it is the learning, the knowledge. And the knowledge transfer, I feel, is very important.
Absolutely.
And in India, that's the thing about India is really known for its entrepreneurship. But it's like one person starts, goes, and another person. So you should take knowledge forward. And what a second generation can do is very different than what a first generation can do. And I think there aren't enough examples of in architecture and design where you can join a firm and become a partner, later on. So very few examples like,
Yeah.
Amrish Lotus in Delhi and SJK in Bombay. And I've been trying to say this, but I don't think when I was saying this about 10 years ago, it was well appreciated. But I can see that now in practices where, associates can see themselves becoming partners.
Of late, there's a lot of noise and chatter around AI, and there are a lot of fears because, you keep hearing every other day it's going to take away jobs, it's going to replace humans. What is your perception, and how do you think AI has helped in the world of design?
AI will create a lot of competitions for humans, especially the non-competent ones, right? You have to be very smart at your job and do it right. Otherwise, like I myself feel we use a certain amount of AI and it's cut short at least a couple of people in the team.
Yes, absolutely.
I would have had to have at least 2 more people because thanks to AI, I don't need them. So yes, it will cut a certain number of jobs if the people who are running entrepreneurship are smart enough to use AI.
Yeah.
And
But people will have to, I guess, upscale themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think in our country, I always believe that our population can be our strength.
Right.
And not our weakness. It's like a joint family business, right? There are 5 people who can do vis-a-vis 1 person. So compared to Western world, I think we have that as our strength. And I always, of course, we have more mouths to feed, but we have more hands to buy. Like we manufacture something, the consumption itself, there's so much we ourselves will buy, Wait, like bade ghar mein, shadi or kuch bhi, they're enough to party themselves. They don't need outsiders. I feel like that as a country, you know.
Yeah,
We can make, we can sell, we can buy, we can do everything ourselves. We really don't need.
So, Supraja, where are you placed professionally right now, and what are your goals? What are your future goals? I know you're into mentoring in a big way, so can you tell us more about it?
Yeah. So I think one's career can be divided into 3 phases. The
Right.
first phase, which is approximately in the 30-year career, would take about 10 years, goes in learning, where you're really trying to up your game and become better at your job. And then the second phase is where you really want to establish yourself, your name, fame, money, all that. And then the third phase is giving back to the society, to the profession. So I'm in that phase that while I really enjoy my work, but I get a lot of satisfaction in how I can contribute back to the profession.
Okay.
And, the initiative of Museum of Telangana, where I'm constantly giving a big shout out to people, professionals in my city. And because as a youngster, the problems I faced from Hyderabad,
You want
Delhi,
people to
Bombay,
learn from that. Yeah.
I want to make sure that people get opportunities, people get recognition, people get, because not every city in India is known for design, and it's on us. So that's very important to me at this point.
Okay, on that note, I think I'm going to thank you for taking time out to chat with us. It was really lovely talking to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.